Yeah, I guess we'll just get going. So thank you guys for joining us today. If you're not familiar with Clearstory, we are a change order software purpose built for the construction industry. And today we're going to focus on these three pillars that we think about here at Clearstory for really capturing all your change order risk as a general contractor. And we'll get into that in just a second. Quick introductions. My name is Cameron Page. I'm the founder of Clearstory. I worked in commercial construction for about 9 years for one of the larger general contractors in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I was fed up with dealing with change orders. So that was really the idea and inspiration behind Clearstory was to make it better, not just for general contractors, but for specialty contractors, owners, sub-tier vendors, really anyone dealing with a change order can use our software to streamline workflows, but most importantly, align and communicate with the companies they're working with. And Greg is with me today. Greg, you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah. Great to meet everyone. My name is Greg Seldon. I'm an account executive at Clearstory. Work mostly on the GC side, especially with like the E&R top, 50 or 100 GCs. Spent about 12, 13 years on the GC side in the industry. And like Cameron, I think my biggest takeaway from that time was the frustration with kind of the change order communication and workflow between subcontractors, GCs, and owners. So joined Clearstory about 5 years ago.
Yeah. Fun fact, Greg was our first sales rep, joined in January of 2020, which was a great time to join. 3 months later, the world changed. But yeah, excited to get into this today. So quick agenda, we're going to kind of do a couple quick slides just framing like the change order gap and really the problem we solve. And then we're going to just quickly step through like the three pillars, how we think about them, and then walk you through kind of in some slides, just briefly how they work. We'll go through the slides pretty quick because I definitely want to kick it over to Greg to do a demo and actually walk you guys through the software and how you can use each of these tools to capture and understand all your change order exposure. And then we'll quickly like summarize the benefits of doing that as we see it. And then we'd love to have Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And when we get to the Q&A, we'll answer them in real time. So to kind of get things started, like our whole philosophy is to help project teams capture and close change orders faster. And by doing that, everyone wins. As a general contractor, obviously, you guys reduce your risk. You can close out jobs faster, but you can also have better conversations and help your client make decisions. And you can stay aligned with your trade partners and help them ultimately get paid faster. And so really what we're trying to do on every project is eliminate this curve from happening at the end of the job that prevents closeout and things like that, and really surprises at the end. And why that does happen is because change order workflow and communication between companies is pretty manual today. One of the big things we're going to talk about today is the change order log. So most general contractors wind up emailing their subcontractors asking for a change order log just so they can understand their risk exposure. And really that risk exposure comes from those three pillars that we're going to talk about today, which we'll get into in just a second. Obviously, field-directed extra work, still largely tracked on carbon copy paper. Distributing design changes is still often done through email. Change order review is also done through email. So Clearstory's real whole focus is to, regardless of what financial software you're using internally, you can use us as that communication and workflow layer between companies. And so we're going to kind of dive right into those three pillars that we think about them. And before I even talk about the three pillars, the key goal that we're trying to help everyone drive is to eliminate the need to ask your counterparty for a change order log. So really with Clearstory, we become your change order log. If you're a general contractor, we become your change order log with each specialty contractor on that project. And if you want to use us upstream with your client, we can become your owner change order log as well. So everything's in real time, all the files are stored, all the review correspondence is there. But in order to get that outcome, we also offer like workflows to help capture the risk through automation. So the first one is pricing requests, sending out design changes, bulletins, addendums. Often as we'll get into, that's a very manual process today. So how can you streamline that, but make sure that every response from a pricing request comes back to your change order log? Same with field-directed extra work. Obviously, today it's largely done on either a fillable PDF form or most likely triplicate carbon copy paper. You're gonna have to wait for, the pricing of that document in order to understand the actual risk exposure. So how do you automate that workflow and again get the final price change order request back into a shared log so everyone has visibility? And then the third one is really contractor initiated changes, which is just simply where one of your trade partners identifies a change. And usually today in the industry, that's just emailed over to you. And then you need to save that file somewhere, review it, put it into a PCO, and ideally have the subcontractor add that to their change order log. So these are like the three work streams that we're going to focus on today. And really the goal of automating and streamlining these workflows is, again, you get everything into a centralized change order log. So you have full picture in real time of everything that's out there. So we'll dive into each one of these quickly, and then we'll jump into a demo here. So Greg, you want to talk about pricing requests?
Yeah. And we made this pillar one because in an ideal world, obviously most of your change orders are coming through requests that the GC is sending out. It's no secret architects love to draw. And if you've been around the industry a while, it seems like the volume of pricing requests seems to go up on every project. So, what we lived and what probably most folks on this call has lived is, you're distributing that cost out either through an email, or, we see a lot of GCs using a Procore distribution or ACC distribution. There's a lot of challenges that can come with not just on the GC side or the sub side, but really what we wanted to introduce was a tool where a GC, a subcontractor, even an owner could come in and know exactly where they stood on the pricing request. So from the subcontractor side, they don't have to worry about missing anything. It organized pricing requests for them. It's a very transparent, collaborative pricing request log where everyone can come into Clearstory and see where they stand on all the pricing requests. And that, another piece of this is, that response is either going to be obviously a change order, a no cost impact. We see no cost impact very widely different, across the different jobs. So also an easy way to collect those no cost impacts from trades. And, the impact of these, obviously the goal is to get these off the job as fast as possible. And to do that, if you send it out to 30 trades, you want to get those 30 responses as fast as you can and get those to the owner as fast as you can. So really, want to introduce the tool to do that quicker and faster for everyone and just create collaboration and alignment throughout that. The faster you can get these up to the owner, happier the owner is, and the happier the quicker they can get you comments back or, get the approval cycle done and keep the job moving.
Yeah. And just to add to that too, we like to Greg's earlier point, we just did a big industry survey. It surveyed like 300 construction professionals, and 86% of them said that they're seeing more change orders today than they were 5 years ago. And with AI and all the new tools that are going to be coming into our space, iteration, collaboration, change is going to be happening faster and faster on every project, right? So the faster, that puts an extra burden on kind of the current process, which is like largely email based, sending out files, trying to hunt down the subcontractors of who has and hasn't responded, and then reviewing all those documents, and then, like Greg mentioned, packaging it up to your owner. And so we all want this future state of construction where we're able to move more dynamically and more quickly, but we're not going to be able to do that if we're doing it manually in order to understand those costs. And again, the impact, what we've also seen is that if you do fall behind in this process, it makes it harder for the client to make decisions quickly. Sometimes delays in those decision making can then impact schedule if there's like a big important change that doesn't get decided on until later in the project. And then that's also why we see, which we'll get to the next pillar in a second, of why we see overtime happening more and more at the end of the projects, trade damage because trades are working on top of each other. So all these things like are related. And so again, to Greg's point, the faster you can get design changes out, get responses back, review those responses, present it to your client in a way where they can make decisions, it's going to drive better outcomes for projects. And Greg, if you want to touch on just like how, and obviously we'll jump into the demo to show this, but if you want to touch on how this works.
Yeah. And one underlying thing that you'll hear us talk about on all these is, the industry wastes billions of hours just trying to get alignment between the subcontractor and the general contractor on your PCI budget, PCO budget, change event budget, whatever system of record you're using it. So that's what we'll talk about a little throughout these as well, is also making it easier for subs and GCs and owners to align on that, how that change order ties back to whatever PCO or PCI budget you guys are tracking it into. So the way Clearstory is built is, it's very simple. You can get started quickly, distribute the pricing requests. We have integrations where you can grab documents from Procore, Autodesk, ACC, right? And then, you can just pick whether you're sending that out to the entire job or certain impacted trades. And the nice thing is at that instant, it generates a live log with each of your trade partners that you're sending it to. So they can come in at any time and see any pricing requests they've been sent, what the status is, and the documents are tied right there. And then instead of, the nice thing is when they respond to that pricing request, it's automatically going to tie back to your PCO or PCI, that you put on the pricing request, which eliminates a lot of that back and forth. And then you can go into do your review and back and forth through Clearstory as well as tie it to your, accounting system from a budget perspective.
Yeah. And I think, the couple of powerful parts about our change notification is it's really like a complete end-to-end workflow, right? Because what you want to do is, again, get the documents out, understand who has and hasn't responded. So we have a bunch of reporting that helps you visualize where you're at with every single design change, and a matrix to show you who has and hasn't responded. And then we have built-in PDF review and markup tools in our software, so you can conduct the review and validation of each of those change order requests. We also have version tracking, so you can mark things, revise and resubmit, track all the back and forth with every change order request. And then through some of our out-of-the-box integrations, like with Procore, ACC Financials, CMIC, Vista, you can push what you've received directly into a PCO, PCI, and make sure that what you're forecasting or what you've received in Clearstory has been pushed into a PCO in your system of record. So it's really a complete workflow with the whole goal of getting this data into your financial software, ideally in a PCO, so you know that you've actually captured it. So we'll demo this in just a second. We'll switch gears to pillar number 2, which is everyone's favorite, tracking field-directed extra work.
Yeah. And one more point, we run into a lot of side spreadsheets on teams trying to better track pricing requests. So if you're on this call and you have a side spreadsheet on the job, trying to better track these, definitely take a look. If you don't know instantly or at any time, where you stand on your pricing requests, it's definitely a tool to look into. Like Cameron mentioned, T&M, in an ideal world, there probably wouldn't be T&M on most jobs. Obviously, with the fast-paced construction, it's just the nature of commercial construction, right? There's change happening fast enough that the sub doesn't have time to go price it and review it, have the GC review it, have the owner review it, right? So they have to do the work on time and material, indicate the labor, material, equipment, and have the GC sign off on that and then price it. Obviously, most of the industry is still on paper carbon copy. Most folks on this call probably either have a yellow or pink carbon copy sitting on their desk or have at one point, right? And there's a lot of gaps that can cause, right? One, it's siloed communication, so it's hard to confidently answer what all the T&M risk is at any point on a job. Obviously, there's a lot of wasted hours in that workflow. Just the amount of hours the industry spends superintendents scanning and emailing tags back to the office, driving tags even back to the office. And then obviously if you've ever, priced a week's worth or a month's worth of T&M tags, the manual kind of work it takes to, go from T&M tag to a change order as well. And at the end of the day, again, we're trying to make this collaborative, and that's what we'll show you in the tool, right? The way with Clearstory, when you come in, you can see a live log of any T&M happening. Ultimately, the sub, GC, and owner all benefit from better documentation, whether that's photos, whether that's not having to read handwriting out in the field and getting it priced faster as well. And again, back to knowing that what T&M tag converts to what PCI or PCO in our accounting system as well.
Yeah. And just to add a couple of things, I think generally agreed that both specialty contractors and GCs like dislike doing T&M work, and really, and they both feel like they lose money in the process. But really, the reason why that's felt is because of how manual and like painful the process is, right? And ultimately, tracking something on T&M is actually the most efficient way to track out of contract work, right? Because you're going to pay somebody for exactly the work that it takes rather than getting a forward price change. A good example, let's say you need to work overtime on Saturday and you ask your subcontractor for, hey, I need you guys to work overtime on Saturday. It's going to be 8 hours. Send me a quote. And let's say they send you a quote for 10 people to show up on the job site on Saturday. But let's say one, gets sick and can't make it, and one has to leave early. And, so maybe only 8 wind up showing up. If you've agreed to that 10-person price, then you're going to have to like somehow go back and like verify who was actually there or wind up paying more for that work. And so like for that example, it would just be much more efficient to say, hey, we want you guys to show up on Saturday. Whoever shows up, let's track it on T&M. Let's agree who was there, the hours they worked, and then let's sign and verify. And the process that it stands today also makes a lot of sense. Again, it's just manual. The specialty contractors don't want their foreman pricing something out on the job site in case they get something wrong. And the GC certainly doesn't want their superintendent agreeing to costs out on the job site. So we just track quantities in T&M tickets. So like it all makes sense, but doing it on paper, the challenge again is that often, we found in our survey, like the average time to price a T&M ticket is like 30 days. So that means the GC is waiting 30 days to understand the cost exposure on average of a T&M ticket. And so it just presents opportunity for forecasting challenges, surprise costs that can, at best, or not at best, but that can erode your fee or just strain relationships. I mean, some of the biggest disputes I got in my career were over T&M tickets that, maybe I didn't realize my superintendent had signed for. And 3 months later, we get a bunch of costs from work that we just truly weren't expecting. And obviously these can pop up at the end of the job, because often at the end of the job, you're working a lot of overtime, you're doing a lot of trade damage repair, paint touch up, and things of that nature. So then it just makes project closeout that much harder. Greg, you want to touch on like just high level how it works in Clearstory?
Yeah. Yeah, what we hear a lot too. Obviously, there can be a lot of underlying stress that, hey, there's a T&M tag out there that was signed that's going to pop up as a change order a month, 2 months later, right? That stress goes away, right? If you know that you can see all the T&M happening in real time and know that it's being tracked in a budget, PCI or PCO budget. So the way our Clearstory workflow operates is we have a mobile app, right? So subs have the option of, documenting labor, material, equipment, photos directly on the mobile app, or they have the option to do it from the computer as well. GCs can also initiate the T&M tag as well and pick the number of days and pick which subs are impacted and preset the PCI, PCO number as well. Instantly, it's going to generate a live log with all the trades. So from the GC side, you can see any T&M happening across the project. Same on the subcontractor side, it's an instant log. So the nice thing is not only can their superintendent or foreman see it, but their office can see it as well. So they don't have to spend any time or effort to scan it, drive it back to the office as well. And they can simply document, labor, material, equipment. If the subcontractor is going to be doing more than a day or two at T&M, they'll typically upload a labor, material, equipment list, so then their field guys can select from the drop down versus even having to input anything manually. And then, we do have a workflow where obviously the GC can review and sign on the mobile app or from the computer. And then, if the subcontractors prefer that, we also have change order workflows that connect with the T&M log. Regardless, the T&M log and change order log speak to each other. So if you're a GC, you can come in and view, not only all the T&M that's happening, but whether or not it's been priced and which change order it's been priced on as well.
Yeah. And again, like just with everything else, like speed matters, right? And so the faster that you can get the T&M ticket logged for both parties back in the home office, the faster that the subcontractor can price it, the faster you can review it. It just starts to solve a lot of like challenges and risk exposures that might be happening. And so one of the other really powerful things about Clearstory is the subcontractors can actually upload all their labor, material, equipment rates into Clearstory, and they can select one or multiple T&M tickets and automatically price it. So that's why specialty contractors, 75% of our customers are specialty contractors. And that's a big part of the reason why they buy our software, so that they can automatically price T&M tickets. But the benefit for the GC of having the subs use that workflow, which by using Clearstory in your projects, you can extend that functionality to your trade partners. You can see the pricing for tickets literally the next day, which again, that's just really challenging today with the current workflows. So the last one we'll touch on quick, and then we'll jump into the demo. But Greg, you want to touch on this one?
Yeah. So contractor initiated or unsolicited change orders, right? Most jobs at some point you're going to have a subcontractor send a change order to you that was not previously requested on your part. So, again, we're going to kind of tie all these together through a change order log and how all this funnels into a change order log. But, obviously these are coming in usually without a PCO or PCI already identified. So, again, these are probably siloed and, email communication back and forth as well. So, we really want to tie this all together in terms of, how these are communicated, make sure they're visible to the entire team as they come in, and also give GCs a tool to really dial in instantly to any unsolicited change orders that are coming in, and make sure you get those addressed and tied out in your forecast.
Yep. And Greg, I'll kind of just touch on this one, and I'll jump into like the how it works slide. Simply put, like the way we have a GC playbook that we offer to our GCs, and usually part of that is make us a project requirement. So most of our customers will actually write us into their subcontract agreements and say, no change order request is valid until it's been uploaded on Clearstory. And all the trade partner has to do is drag and drop their PDF file that they would normally email to you. So for a contractor initiated change, that would be the expectation. If there's a change out there, you upload it in Clearstory, and now we're tracking it. Now we know that it's out there. Now it's not, I don't have to download it from my inbox, save it to a file folder. Yes, the subcontractor doesn't have to, add it to their change order log. And I'll kind of touch on how that works in a second. But again, just to recap, these three workflows are usually happening below the surface, and oftentimes are not in sync with your system of record. So really, by focusing on these three work streams, you're building, or you're bringing visibility into something that's not quite visible until it kind of becomes a change order request, and you can actually enter it into your PCO. And so really the whole goal of Clearstory is to take these things that are often below the surface and bring them up, with the other benefit of just simply never having to ask your sub for a change order log again, because you're going to be aligned in real time. So quickly, I'll go through how it works because I really want to jump into the demo and actually show you guys some of these tools. So the core concept again of Clearstory is we become your change order log on the project. So you create a contract for each of your subs, you invite them to that contract. They can only see what's in their contract. You want to use us upstream with your owner, you simply do the same thing with your client. And then again, the easiest way to get started is your trade partners are just going to upload a copy of their change order request. Then it's going to be logged in real time. You can use our messaging tools, our markup tools to review the change order requests, mark it, revise, and resubmit, track the version history. We create a digital paper trail so you can track all the review correspondence. It's also a powerful way for you to showcase to your client that the fact that you went through a change order review process. And then just by using that, we help to make sure that everything you captured in Clearstory is in your system of record. So again, we integrate directly with Procore change events, Autodesk PCOs, CMIC PCIs, and Vista PCOs, just to name a few of our out-of-the-box integrations. But a lot of our customers use us unintegrated, and we have basically a PCO column in our software, and the workflow becomes make sure every change order request you've received has a corresponding PCO number. But then on top of that, we have the workflows. So change notifications, send out pricing exercises, and then like Greg mentioned on pillar number 2 is a whole workflow for digitizing the T&M process. So with that, let's jump into it so you guys can kind of see how this works in the software. Greg, I'll stop sharing and kick it over to you.
All right. So yeah, we'll really just tie, the three pillars back and what it looks like in the software. So really we'll run through the live change order log, the live T&M log, and then where you stand on any pricing requests. So when I click into the change order log, essentially this is what gets the team away from email back and forth, and what's also gets the team away from needing to request change order logs with each of the trades. So, the behavior change subs will simply upload the change order. And by doing that, it'll generate a live log with each of your trades. So that's what you're looking at here, essentially as a live dashboard for the project. So as subs upload change orders, you'll see them populate into this log. And then you can filter this log down by trade partner. If you're working multiple jobs, obviously by a PCO, PCI number, by status. And then the nice thing is, from a document control perspective, the PDFs lives right there on the line item. So obviously, a lot of teams spend a lot of hours just trying to get the PDFs in the right location. That somewhat goes away, right? Where you can come in, whatever change order you need to look at, you can click right into it. And I'll point out a few things here, right? One, it tracks the revision history, which takes a big burden off the project team. You can check the PCO or PCI number that it came in against. There's markup tools in line with the system, so you don't have to open up Bluebeam or Adobe or anything. You can just make your markups as needed. And probably the most important thing is on the right side, you'll see this activity trail. So it instantly tracks this. So, a lot of frustration. If someone on the GC side or owner or sub side has to leave the project, there can obviously be some heartburn with what leaves with them in terms of emails or communication, right? This tracks all the communication. So, if anyone leaves the job, or you just need to go back and look at the history, you can see when the subcontractor submitted it, when your team came in and made comments. So it tracks all that for the team as well. Really, the goal here is, obviously bring transparency into it, but get the change orders, reviewed and through the approval cycle as fast as possible. The two other workflows we'll touch on quickly is the T&M and the pricing request. So when you need to distribute a pricing request, you can come here to add a change notification, click distribute a pricing request, and then you'll just pick the project that you're sending the pricing request out for. You can select all if you need to distribute to the entire job, or you can pick individual trade partners if there's two or three that are impacted from the trade. You can preset whatever your reference number is, whether it's a PCI, PCO, and it will. The nice thing about doing that is, you're already doing that when you're sending pricing requests today, but now all the responses are going to tie back to that reference number. And then you can give it, description. Let's just say you got 100% CD set. There's a few ways to get documents in here. You can either upload from your computer, drag in here. You can use the integrations to connect to Procore, ACC, or different systems. And then you'll give your subs a due date. And just by distributing it through Clearstory, it's going to generate a live pricing request log for the project. So now what you're looking at is basically, the PCI number, PCO number, the date your team sent it out, the due date, the title, how many trades you sent it to, how many have responded, and what the cost impact is. And all you're having to do is distribute it through Clearstory, and it's going to track all of this for you. And you can drill into the detail of any of these pricing requests, or, we have a matrix view where you can come in and see a matrix of all your pricing requests, what percent complete the team is. You can also see it across all your trades, so you can really dial into, what trades are on top of all their pricing requests, what trades need work or attention, and it ultimately help everyone instantly know where they stand on the pricing request, but ultimately get them, closed out faster. So I know I'm going through this quickly, but definitely wanted to at least give a quick preview of kind of the three workflows we talked about. Last is T&M. This is what gets the team away from paper carbon copy and gives the team kind of an instant view of any T&M that's happening on the project. So you can see this job has, over 1,000 T&M tags, and the team has instant visibility, right? So subs can either fill this out from the mobile app or from the computer, and it's going to generate into the live log for the project. And then I'll click into a few of these so you can see kind of what they look like. from a documentation perspective. It'll have the subs logo, all the job information's already there, and then you can they can add labor, material, equipment. GCs can set up. Obviously, most folks are familiar with the rubber stamps that pre-populate. You can set that up as well. And then the nice thing is for subcontractors is they can, add photos to the T&M tags as they're doing them as well. And again, the goal here is to, one, know the exposure instantly, two, get better documentation to give to the customer, three, make sure there's a PCI or PCO or reference number tracking against it.
And
So
that's one thing I would just point out there too, Greg, is that COR number column. It's like a simple column, but it's really powerful, right? That simply tells you of the T&M tickets that we've signed or are waiting signature, how many of them have we seen the associated change order request for? So again, you can filter this log to show all the ones pending COR, and you know that that's your total exposure that hasn't been priced yet. So just some like really simple but really powerful things you can do with the T&M log.
yeah. And I know we're I think going a few minutes over, but wanted to go through that quickly so you get a gist for kind of how the three workflows tied together, and obviously pause if there's any questions that came in as well.
Yeah, there's a couple good questions that came in that maybe we could even jump back to the demo for. One of the good ones is the how would a GC notify a contractor of a potential back charge against them? So we do have a workflow in the software specifically for back charges. Greg, I don't know if you actually want to pop it back open, we can show that. But one of the things I'd actually point out about back charges too is that while we do have a workflow to like take one sub's change order request and back charge it to another, which saves like a bunch of clicks and steps and adds transparency. One of the biggest challenges with back charges is that oftentimes they're from T&M work, not always, but often. And again, speed wins every time, right? So the faster you can get the cost from one sub to have the conversation with another sub to back charge, the easier you're going to resolve conflicts. And what happens often with back charges is it's from like ongoing work, right? Supplemental work or trade damage repair or whatever it might be. And the longer that work goes on without back charging and notifying the sub that's causing the extra work, or the harder it is to like correct the behavior. So like all the other tools upstream in Clearstory help you get the cost faster so that you can ideally prevent the back charge from growing to a bigger back charge. But just want to point that out. And then Greg, Greg will show you quickly the back charge workflow where you can basically take one sub's change order request and back charge it to another.
Yeah. Yeah, we're somewhat uniquely positioned for back charges because you now have a live log with all of your trades. One of the biggest frustrations with back charges is trades will not acknowledge or put it on their log. So say I needed to take this top change order and back charge it to another trade, I would click create back charge. Let's say it's being back charged to concrete, and then it'll actually generate the next change order number on the concrete's log. It'll put the word back charge in here. It'll give it a negative dollar value. It'll pull through the PCO change event PCI number as well. And then it pulls in the change order. You can always add documents to it or replace the change order PDF, and then you can go ahead and create the back charge, and now it will notify the concrete of the back charge and the documentation and everything.
A couple other questions that came in that I want to make sure we hit. One question is, are you fully integrated with CMIC yet? Also, the bigger pain point is determining which contractor change notifications should go to and getting contractors to provide time responses, pricing by the deadline. Short answer on the CMIC thing is yes. And we're also working to it with a bunch of our CMIC customers to keep enhancing it. But yeah, the integration itself has been live for a pretty long time. Feel free to reach out to us depending on what company you're with. We can give you like status of where your company is in terms of connecting it, but it is live. And on the bigger pain point around change notifications, determining which contractor change notifications should go to, that's not something we can detect automatically, is like which scope has changed and which sub should it go to. So there is still a bit of like human work to determine like who might be impacted by this change. Obviously, one of the things subcontractors get super annoyed with is getting irrelevant changes sent to them constantly. And them having to go into Clearstory and mark it no cost impact. Although I will say it's a 2-click response for them to say no cost impact. And then on the pricing deadline side, that is where that response matrix really comes in handy, is that, again, without Clearstory, it's like hard to just visualize what all is out there, who's responded, who do we need to go hunt down. And so the goal of that response matrix is to help you give that bird's eye view of where we at in terms of all of our pricing requests. Next question is it an option to only subscribe to the T&M module portion of the software? And does it integrate with Foundation? Great question. We don't really separate our software in terms of like functionality. But what a lot of our customers do is they a lot of times the initial use case is focusing around T&M. So a lot of times they'll just buy licenses for their foreman and maybe a couple office users so they can log in and see like where the tickets are at. Foundation, great question. Feel free to reach out to us directly. We are like currently exploring a Foundation integration. I do believe some of our customers are using like an import export with Foundation, but that's something that's actually top of mind for us. So I'm glad you asked. And then another question that came in, and maybe Greg, you can take this one. Can Clearstory handle a workflow with multiple price submissions? Currently on a project where we need to submit a ROM to the owner shortly after we get a design change. Thanks. So there are a couple of workflows. Greg, anything that you would think through for that?
Yeah, a lot of our GCs do, they'll get a ROM from the subcontractor within 5 days, and then they owe them, a final price within 2 weeks or something. So, one, there is a column if you're not getting a sub ROM and you want to internally indicate a ROM within the change notification log, there is a field for that. So you can come into the detail of a pricing request, and you can see this internal estimate field where you could just put a ROM in there. So we have some GCs that use that functionality. We have a lot of subcontractors and GCs too that will, ROM is one of our main, change order statuses, right? So if you get a change order and it's in ROM, I'll just actually change the status one of these to ROM. And that way you and the sub are aligned that the ROM's been shared, but it's not in the GC's court to like submit final review and final pricing in. And then it's a simple revision or update to that ROM that will make it a formal change order and put it, in the GC's court for formal review.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that internal estimate field is that we show you the forecast of where it's heading. So if you fill out the internal estimate, you'll start receiving prices from the subs, and we calculate if there is no response yet, use the internal estimate. If there is a response, use the response. And then that projected cost column is and that header at the top is like where the projected cost is coming in. Ideally, once you've had all the responses, then the total cost impact and the projected cost will eventually match. And that'll be the final cost. One thing too is if you're using Clearstory upstream with your client, you can send them a placeholder ROM in the change order log so they can see that placeholder is there. And then once you get the final pricing, you can either, some GCs just upload their change order request, maybe they're still creating it in CMIC or Procore or wherever. So you can either upload your change order request, or you can actually create one in Clearstory, and we kind of automate the packaging of the owner change order request. So it's something you could explore there. But once you get the actual change order price, you could just submit a revision, which would swap out the placeholder with the current cost. Next question, does the system allow for internal review of T&M tickets/tags prior to submitting to the customer? What about when you're the sub of a GC doesn't have Clearstory? Good questions. So the first one, so we have a draft status that what's powerful about that is whether the field creates the tag or you create the tag in the office. So you can create tags on the mobile app or from the web app back in the office, but those will always mirror each other. So like if you create one in the office, the foreman will see that draft tag pop up on their device. And so a lot of our customers have a workflow where they'll create the draft, the office will review it, make edits, save it, and then the foreman will go get it signed. So it really opens itself, which obviously with paper, that's very challenging to do. And then the last question is one I love. It's one that we've thought about a lot at Clearstory. What about when you're the sub and the GC doesn't have Clearstory? So that's like obviously, 75% of our customers are subcontractors, and we couldn't be in business if every GC had to like sign up for Clearstory in order for the subcontractor to use it. So it works a lot like DocuSign, where with DocuSign, if you get something that's sent to you, you can sign it and move on with your life, and they'll email you a copy of what you've signed. Or if you want, though, you can create a free account and see what you've signed. And Clearstory basically works the exact same way. So if all the GC wants to do is sign on the mobile app or sign via email, they'll get the final signed copy routed to them in an email. They can download it, they can have it for the records, but they don't have to adopt or buy into using Clearstory. If they do want to create a free Clearstory account, they can log in and see what you've sent to them. So that's the way it works. And so, GC adoption isn't really part of you rolling out and leveraging Clearstory. I think that was all the questions. Those were great questions. And if anybody else has more questions, of course, like we'd love to hear from you guys. Feel free to reach out to us. And we really appreciate everyone hopping on. I think that's a wrap. We're at 40 minutes. Thank you for staying with us the whole time. Hopefully it was helpful. And yeah, we'd love to chat with you guys. All right. Thanks.